We finally have sliding implemented, and let me tell you, does it feel absolutely incredible. This game might not have the best animations yet, and I still have to make a couple of small tweaks to the slide system I'll get into later, but I'm really enjoying running around the map right now. I also implemented sliding to be physics based, which lets us slide forever as long as we're going down a steep enough hill. I put a giant ramp in just to demonstrate how cool this can look in game. Imagine a level where the attacking team is sliding down a mountain while the defending team are waiting for them and a bunker at the bottom. Sliding is such a cool mechanic, and I really like how it turned out, so let's get into how we got here. To understand what sliding is, we first need to understand how crouching works in Unreal. Within the character movement component, we have a bunch of different movement modes like walking, falling, flying, and so on. Did you notice that I didn't say crouching? That's because it actually isn't a movement mode in a traditional sense, but a switch that can be flipped to change the capsule height as well as the speed of our character. We're going to piggyback on this switch to get our character sliding around the map. To trigger the switch, the player just has to press the crouch button on the controller or keyboard. From there, we check to see if they're moving fast enough and moving forward. If so, putting them into a slide. If they don't meet these qualifications, they'll simply switch over to the crouch state that we implemented a few weeks ago. Once the character is sliding, we need to implement a whole bunch of under the hood physics stuff that I won't bore you with, but I'll summarize it instead. Basically, we start with an initial velocity of our character and we give that a little boost force that we'll call our slide impulse force. From there, the character slides until they slow down enough due to friction and reach the minimum speed threshold for sliding. From there, they'll pop back up in the sprinting state if they have the forward movement button floored, ready to slide again. In most games, you go from slide into crouch, but for now, I'm going against that. I want this game to always encourage fast, dynamic gameplay, so the last thing I want to do is default the player into the slower crouch state when I could just stand them up sprinting once again. It feels so much better now that I've tested both implementations, and while I could change my mind later on, this is what we're going with for now. If you watched any of my previous videos, you may have noticed how much better the transition from standing to crouching looks now. In case you're new to the channel, see how gross this transition looked when I captured this video before I made this week's changes. It is incredibly jarring as we are instantly snapping the camera from stand to crouch and vice versa. To fix this, all I had to do was interpolate our view location when the capsule height changes. There are these handy events on the character called on start crouch and on stop crouch, which I used to tell our player camera manager to start moving the view. After playing around with the constants for a while, I think I've gotten it to a pretty good point, but they're easy to tweak later on if I decide to do so. Unfortunately, once I finished implementing the system, I realized that this completely screws up my opacity mask on the weapon scopes. You see, the material function uses a camera position node, and I'm actually moving the view target when I carry out the interpolation in the player camera manager and not the camera directly. I spent some time starting to go through an elaborate method of passing the view target location to the opacity mask material function when it hit me that this was unnecessary. The only time the mask looks screwed up is when the character is already aimed down sight and transitions between crouch and standing. When the character is already aimed down sight, they don't need a view transition because all we can see is the scope. At that point, the snapping isn't so jarring because we can't see the height change on the character as easily. There is also the fact that when we're aimed down sight, we're presumably firing at a target. The functional solution of just snapping between the heights is better here than having to manage a very subtle view transition while you're already trying to track the target as well as manage recoil. So now we are performing our smooth view target transition when we care more about appearance while we're at the hip, but snapping between standing and crouch directly when we're aimed down sight. Who says that you can't have the best of both worlds? The next thing I needed to update was the god awful look of our third person animations. The character we're watching has that scooting to the bathroom look, and I'd really rather not look at that anymore. The reason that it looks so bad is because we're letting the upper body animations lead the blend. Our character here needs upper body animations that handle things like how they hold the weapon and stuff like that. Trouble is, it also needs animations to handle how it looks while walking, sprinting, and all that good stuff. We accomplish this by blending the two animations together, but a critical design decision is which set of animations do we lead with, the upper or the lower. The advantage to leading with the upper animations, as you can see here, is that I made them all myself so the character is always facing perfectly forward. Trouble is, though, that we aren't seeing all the bending in the various spine bones that make the professionally made lower body animations I bought look so good. To fix this, I switched the blend to lead with the lower animations, and we can see now that our guy is bending all over the place and looks a lot more fluid. Unfortunately, though, he is literally never facing forward, which just doesn't look right and is flat out confusing from our perspective of watching this character controlled by the other player in the game. To fix that issue, all I had to do was go into every single lower body animation we're using and manually rotate the character in the first frame such that they were facing forward. This is a bit of a tedious process, but I found a pretty solid workflow, as you can see here, where I can update the animation and see the results in real time. Trouble is, though, that we are using a lot of lower body animations, 33 to be exact. So if you're getting sick of watching me fix one of them, think of how I felt after fixing 32 more. Once that was done, I attacked another problem that's been nagging me for quite some time. When I first implemented movement, I noticed this horrible stuttering effect when a networked character is moving backwards. This effect also happens in the first person character if you don't interpolate your rotation correctly, but I implemented that fix and still saw the issue with the networked third person character. I can't tell you how much time I've spent trying to fix this issue and have been completely unsuccessful in doing so. It's led to me just avoiding moving the character backwards when capturing for these videos, which just isn't a good place to be in. Hence why it's been on the top of my to do list for some time. In a time limited session to fix the issue one night this week, though, I stumbled upon this forum post where our pal Narut here was having the same issue. He mentions that he fixed it just by setting the Orient character rotation to movement to false. I quickly went into my code and flipped the boolean that I had set to true for some unknown reason, and the stuttering completely went away. So, here for the first time is our character moving backwards in all his glory. It's so funny when you think the problem is so complex and the solution is just flipping a flag at the very top of your code, isn't it? I didn't find it funny all those sessions where I was trying to fix this, but I digress. Now that we've gone over everything we accomplished this week, we can take in the final result once again. Things are looking pretty crispy here to say the least, but there are still a few little cleanup things I need to do for sliding. For one, my initial attempt at allowing the character to accelerate left or right during a slide led to the character sliding forever, so we'll need to re implement that in a better way. From there, I need to get aim down sight while sliding working, as I currently just have it disabled because it was causing a whole bunch of issues. I then need to make a third person animation for sliding because my asset pack doesn't have one. Once I get all that cleanup done, it's on to making these guns actually do something other than sitting there and looking pretty. If you want to see how all that goes for me, consider subscribing to the channel. I release one of these every Sunday night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, so come along with me and see how this game grows from now until it releases in November of 2026. On a side note, I keep saying November 2025 in these videos for some reason, but the actual date is November 2026 for the record. Speaking of that release date, the Steam wishlist link is in the description, So definitely check that out if you want to be notified when the game finally drops. I'd also really appreciate it if you like the video and leave a comment. That really helps bring more people to the channel, so thank you so much in advance for doing it. Also, in that comment section, let me know if you like the new style of this video. I noticed my average view duration metrics weren't good in the last one and instantly knew why when I watched it myself with a more critical eye. If I want you guys to enjoy these videos, I can't keep making them end up like a boring high school lecture that makes neither of us want to be there in the first place. I put a lot of time into trying to make the audio and visuals for this video more interesting than usual, but let me know if you have any other ideas on how to make things better. With all that being said, though, my name is Steve, and I'll see you all next Sunday night. Have a great week, everybody.